Calvin offers a corrective to what we've just surveyed in Thomas. And there are two complementary ways that I can put this in terms of initial doctrinal statement. The first is that Calvin presents the essence of God as being irreducibly tripersonal. And corresponding to that, he sets forth the doctrine of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit as autotheos. Let me try to clarify both of those conceptions together. What does it mean to say that the Son, and by extension the Holy Spirit, is autotheos? Well, the Son as God, according to his essence, is autotheos. He is God from self. However, the Son, according to his person, is from the Father in a processional relation of opposition. The Spirit of God, according to his essence, is autotheos. His aseity is not dependent on another. The Spirit of God, according to his person, is from the Father and from the Son in an ordered processional taxis. And so whether we're thinking of the Son or the Spirit, we're simply saying something along these lines, that with reference to essence, the Son and Spirit is God of himself. And with reference to person, is Son from the Father or Spirit from the Father or the Son. Another way to try to clarify this is that a great presupposition for Calvin's theology of the Trinity is that the processional relations of opposition in the Godhead, eternal filiation, Father and Son, eternal spiration, Father and Son and Spirit, that those processional relations of opposition occur within the irreducible triune being of God. The essence is not tripersonalized in the processions, rather the processions occur within a tripersonal essence, irreducible, common to all. So, yet another way to try to clarify this initially, the essence, according to Calvin, does not process along with persons. Persons process in generation and spiration. The essence does not process along with those relations of opposition. Rather, the essence simply is the three persons, and the three persons simply are the divine essence. That is the simplest introductory way I know how to put it. But let me talk now a bit more about the way Calvin tried to appropriate, and I believe more rigorously than Thomas, the common, proper distinction that we just surveyed in Thomas. Remember, Thomas wants to affirm it, but what does he do? He folds the common and the proper into the person of the Father in a pre-processional paternal unity of essence. And then post-processionally, it's tripersonalized. Or in the processions, it is tripersonalized. But Calvin sought rigorously to distinguish and maintain what is common to each person, the essence, and what is proper to each person in procession. This is a fundamental programmatic commitment of Calvin, and this work has been showcased in Brannon Ellis's volume on Calvin, Classical Theism, the Aseity of the Son. Richard Muller has done some work on this in his Post-Reform Reformation Dogmatics. But let me try to clarify what Calvin is saying when he distinguishes between what is common and proper in our grammar of Trinitarian orthodoxy. Calvin affirmed that the Son is autotheos, God of himself, And when he affirmed that the Son is autotheos, he denied that the Son possesses a aseity as he possesses it from the Father, because that would violate what is common to each person. So the Son is God of himself as such. He has a aseity of himself. By its very definition, what is ase cannot be communicated from another because it entails the coordinate notion of independence from another. What is ase is independent. What is independent is ase. The two conceptions entail one another. And so Calvin insisted that the Son possesses a aseity from himself because he is the same essence as the Father, and the essence of God is ase and independent. It is not given from another. Aseity inheres in both the Father and the Son and the Spirit as intrinsic to the very notion of deity itself. So what is common to all is not communicated within a processional taxis. Only what is proper processes, what is common does not. Such a conclusion is nothing more than an entailment of strict, ruled Trinitarian grammar rooted in the categorical distinction between what is common in the essence and what is proper in the person within the Godhead. Let me put it a little differently that captures Calvin's concern. And this is critical to understand. This is my elaboration of Calvin. There is no order in the essence of God. I'll say it again. There is no order in the essence of God, period. If there were an order of aseity within the essence, we would have to speak of an order in what by its very conception is independent and incapable of being ordered. If we were to speak of an order of simplicity within the essence, then we would have to speak of an order in that which by its very nature, its very conception, is singular and incapable of being ordered. You don't order what is unitarily independent. You don't order what is unitarily simple. If there were an order of immutability within the essence, we'd have to speak of an order in what by its very conception is exalted above all becoming and development and is incapable of being ordered. You see, there is no order of aseity, simplicity, or immutability within the essence of God. The Son as God, the Holy Spirit as God, according to his essence, is autotheos and is thus the full, eternal, simple, immutable ase deity of the Godhead. That's Calvin's point. Yet, at the same time, the complementary point, there is a personal order or personal taxis within that essence. The person of the Son is from the person of the Father as both are God. The person of the Spirit is from the person of the Father and the person of the Son as all are God. There are two personal processions within the one common Godhead. The Son is neither from the Father according to his essence, nor autotheos according to his person. The Spirit is neither from the Father and Son according to his essence, nor autotheos according to his person. This helps us understand how Calvin did not in any way reject the doctrines of eternal generation and eternal spiration. as some have woefully and wrongfully claimed. Rather, he sought to maintain a personal order of taxis, what is proper, within a common tripersonal essence, within a being that is inherently triune. Now, when we put it that way, we start to recognize that Calvin won't do what Thomas did. He won't take us to a pre-processional, reducible paternal unity of essence, only then to turn around and see the essence tripersonalized in processional movements of spiration, of generation and spiration. Instead, he insists that the essence is irreducibly tripersonal, common to all, without qualification, and personal processions occur within that essence. So, autothean personhood, the idea that the Father is God of himself, the Son is God of himself, and the Spirit is God of himself, that's an entailment, according to Calvin, of properly ruled Trinitarian grammar, operating in light of a strict distinction between what is common in the Godhead essence and what is proper in the Godhead person. What is common is essence. What is proper is person. And if that's the case, as we apply this rule to the relations of opposition in the Trinity, the following formulations emerge. The Father is ase, common essence, in the act of generating the Son. The Son is ase, in the act of being generated by the Father. The Father and the Son are ase, in the conjoined act of spirating the Spirit, and the Spirit is ase, as he is spirated by the Father and the Son. You see, personal properties emerge in our understanding as we contemplate the processional relations of opposition. The Father's personal property, paternity. The Son's personal property, filiation. The Spirit's personal property, spiration, being spirated. But this is key. Essences don't emerge in those processions. Persons emerge to our understanding. Essences do not. Because it is persons and not essences that process in the acts of generation and spiration. The Father begets the person of the Son proper, but not the essence of the Son common. The Father and the Son spirate the person of the Spirit proper, and not the essence of the Spirit common. So what do we have here? We have basically three conceptions that we have to keep clear. First, Calvin teaches that the essence of God is irreducibly tripersonal. It cannot be folded into the person of the Father. It cannot be folded into the person of the Son. It cannot be folded into the person of the Holy Spirit. It is irreducibly tripersonal in character. Second, leading from this, being entailed by this, flowing from it, the Son is autotheos with respect to his essence, from the Father with respect to his person. The Spirit is autotheos with respect to his essence, from the Father and from the Son with reference to his person. And third, ruled Trinitarian grammar will not let us transgress what is common, essence, what is proper, person. Now, what I want us to do next is turn and consider something of the historical background for the development of Calvin's language as it was set in a context of controversies with Trinitarian heretics, Arminians, and Roman Catholics who together could not envision or maintain the irreducibly tripersonal character of the essence of God, nor its entailment in autothean Trinitarian personhood. Let's look now at some of the historical background, Calvinism and Arminianism in the divine processions. Richard Muller, in his very useful work, Post-Reformation Reformed Dogmatics on the Triunity of God, at the beginning of the 17th century, the doctrine of Asietas, of the second person of the Trinity, was an initial point of contention in the Arminian controversy. And it remained a significant point of difference between Reformed and Remonstrant theology, as the Remonstrants became increasingly subordinationistic in their views of the Trinity. The early Orthodox writers were with the Reformers, specifically with Calvin, in their Trinitarian thinking. Just as it also measures the variety of formulation that could arise in the context of an early orthodoxy, examining not only its immediate roots in the theology of the Reformers, but also its more remote roots in the older tradition of doctrine, including the patristic period. Now let me make this observation, end of quote. Let me make this observation. In the early 17th century, the Reformed, following Calvin, affirmed the aseity of the Son, and the Arminians denied it explicitly, leading toward subordinationism. Following the ruled grammar that we outlined above, the Reformed who followed Calvin in the early Orthodox period ascribed aseity to the Son himself and ascribed filiation to the Son in his relation of opposition to the Father. The Arminians, however, did not speak in such a way, and this led to them being increasingly subordinationistic. If only the Father is ase, and the Son is not, then a form of ontological hierarchy emerges within the Trinity. Muller elaborates. Listen to this. Quote, Arminius defined his Trinitarian views more after the model of Greek patristic theology than after the Latin Augustinian model. Arminius understands the vita Dei, or the life of God, as the very nature and form of the divine essence, and argues that God has life in himself, that is, has asietas, or is autotheos. Now here's the key quote, listen. The begetting of the Son by the Father should be understood as a generation of the Son's person by a communication of the essence, and that, therefore, the attribute of self-existence, or asietas, belonged to the Father exclusively. End of quote. Now you have to understand this. The Arminian model of the Trinity affirmed that the Father is ase, but in its doctrine of communication of essence in eternal generation, denied the same of the Son. That is the concern of Calvin. And Muller makes some fascinating observations here. He says Arminius followed the Eastern model of the Trinity that locates the unity of the essence and the aseity of God in the Father alone. Correlating what? To Thomas. Thomas is following, according to Muller, like Arminius, an Eastern model of the Trinity. Only the Father has life in himself. Only the Father is autotheos. This leads directly to the doctrine, quote, that the begetting of the Son by the Father should be understood as a generation of the Son's person by communication of essence. And that means that if his essence is communicated, it is dependent on an act of communication. And if it is dependent on an act of communication from the Father, it cannot be what? Independent. It cannot be ase. This Arminian formulation, Muller says, leads directly to subordinationism. Since the Father alone possesses the attribute of aseity, and the Son and the Spirit possess it not at all. The simplicity of the divine essence is compromised. A hierarchy emerges within the Godhead, and aseity is predicated only of the Father and not to the Son or Spirit. Now we need to recognize this. Calvin offers us roots of anti-subordinationist theology standing over against Arminianism. It's Arminians who introduce subordination into the Godhead, not Calvinists. But Muller extends this observation in the following statement. Here's what he says. The Son as derived cannot be autotheos, except in the limited sense that the Son is one who truly and in himself is God. Any claim that the Son is, quote, one who is God from himself is unacceptable. A doctrine that makes such a claim implies three deities. This charge, leveled against Tralcatius, resembles the complaint leveled by Gentilis against Calvin's doctrine of the aseity of the Son considered as to essence. It also resembles Joachim of Flora's attack on Lombard. Tralcatius, by way of contrast, had affirmed that the begetting of the Son was a begetting or generation of sonship, so that the Son had his sonship from the Father, but he also had argued that the divine essence belonging to the three persons is common, was itself ingenerate, and that the Son, considered essentially as God, has the attribute of aseity as well. End quote. You see, here's what Muller is saying. Contrary to the Arminian position, the person of the Son is generated. The essence of the Son is ingenerate. In the first relation of opposition, in filiation, it is only the person of the Son who is generated because his essence is ingenerate. In the second relation of opposition, spiration, it is only the person of the Spirit who is spirated since his essence is ingenerate. And a corollary to an ingenerate essence is an a se essence. An essence is not generated, an essence doesn't process, and therefore the essence has all of the common attributes of deity, including aseity. That is the point that the Calvinists made against the Arminians who denied it. Now Muller goes further. He notes that the Arminians are using an Eastern doctrine that folds the unity of essence into the person of the Father, that denies aseity to the Son and the Spirit. But he says that the doctrinal conception Calvin set forth has its roots in a Western model of the Trinity, as influenced by Lombard, and as codified in the Fourth Lateran Council. Now listen to this. He says, the controversy that ensued in the faculty at Leiden not only offered a prelude to the even more bitter debate that would arise shortly over grace and predestination, it also offered a prelude to the century-long debate between Reformed and Remonstrants over the doctrine of the Trinity. The question underlying the assignment of aseity to the Father and the Son, or on the other side of the debate, strictly to the Father, was the question of precisely what is generated in the generating or begetting of the Son. In the traditional Western model, as argued by Peter Lombard and ratified in the Fourth Lateran Council, the divine essence neither generates nor is generated. Rather, the person of the Father generates the person of the Son, with the result that the Son, considered as to his sonship, is generated, but considered as to his essence is not. End quote. Now listen, I want to make this explicit. That's not full-orbed autotheos yet, but it is a Western, Lombardian, Fourth Lateran Council precursor to its emergence in Calvin. It's not everything Calvin said, but it's the beginning of the development of this robust, ruled grammar of autothean personhood. Now let me make a few comments to elaborate what Muller's saying, because he doesn't quote Lombard or make reference to him. Lombard most clearly taught that the divine essence neither generates nor is generated. The person of the Father generates the person of the Son, but as Lombard said, quote, "The Son considered as to his sonship is generated, but considered as to his essence is not." Lombard says, and these are quotes from the Sentences, Book 1 of the Mystery of the Trinity. These few quotes will be from around pages 28 to 30. Listen. He said, "Some adversaries of the truth grant that the Father and Son and Holy Spirit, or three persons, are one God and one substance, yet they refuse to grant that the one God or one substance is three persons. But the Catholic faith teaches and preaches, quote, both that the three persons are one God and that the one substance or essence or divine nature is three persons." Now that, end of quote, that's from page 28. That is a statement of irreducible tripersonal essence. Lombard cites Augustine along these lines and says, quote, "The one and only true God is the Trinity itself. And if the one God is the Trinity, then the one God is three persons. The one God is Trinity, and the one substance three persons, and conversely, the Trinity is said to be the one God, and the three persons are said to be the one substance." Now, that is congenial to irreducible tripersonal essence. And Lombard further denied that the Father generated the essence of the Son. He says, "Neither did the Father generate a divine essence, nor did a divine essence generate the Son, nor did an essence generate an essence. And here the term essence we understand to be the divine nature, which is common to the three persons and is whole in each of them. The essence is not proper to the Father, but common to the three. It is whole in each of them." And so, moving on, he says this, quoting from Augustine, and this invokes the common proper distinction. Listen to what he says. "What is asserted relatively does not indicate substance." End quote. This means, quote, "If the Father were said to have generated a divine essence, the divine essence would be spoken of relatively to the Father, or would be posited as a relative term. From the aforementioned, it is clear that the Father did not generate the divine essence, but the Father alone begot the Son, and the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son." Now, Muller has these sorts of quotes in view. And he's saying this, and I believe Muller has a point here, that this is the beginning, in an embryonic expression, of what will come to fuller fruition in Calvin's formulation of irreducible triune essence and autothean personhood. It is the Western model that Lombard is setting forth, and that Muller argues is codified in the Fourth Lateran Council. Now, with that being said, I want to note something that Brandon Ellis has pointed out in his book on Calvin and the Trinity that I think is useful. Lombard did go on to affirm a communication of essence from the Father to the Son. And so in that sense, Lombard takes steps toward autothean account of personhood, but he falls short of it, at least the way that Muller, Warfield, Voss, Van Til, and I interpret Calvin. Here's the quote from Ellis that's helpful, and I believe he's quoting Lombard from pages 100 and 102 of his work on the Trinity. Quote, "The Son, by being born, took not only being Son, but also that he be entirely and that he be substance itself. So also the Holy Spirit, by proceeding from the Father and the Son, took not only being Holy Spirit or gift, but also that he be entirely and that he be substance." Here's the quote that will add clarity if that's giving you a bit of a migraine. The Son is not essence by birth, but only Son. And the Holy Spirit is not essence by procession, but only gift. And yet each of them, one by being born and the other by proceeding, took that he be essence. Let me try to make that clearer. That's pages 100 to 102 of the Sentences, Volume 1 on the Trinity. Let me try to clarify what Lombard's saying. And this is where he would not be a precursor to Calvin. The other earlier quotes are, this not so much. The Son is not the divine essence by generation, because his personal property is given in generation or arises in filiation. However, the Son is the divine essence by communication, since the Father communicates his own essence to the Son in an act parallel to generation. So the following distinction seems to emerge in Lombard, and this is my attempt to try to clarify him. What is proper is generated. What is common is communicated. The person of the Son is generated. The essence of the Son is communicated. So that there is an addition to the act of generation, which is personal, an act of communication, which is essential. The Son is Son by generation. The Son is God by communication. If Ellis is correct here, I think he offers something that Moeller, at least in the quotation I surveyed from page 88 of his post-Reformation Reformed Dogmatics, does not render clear. Lombard would not go so far as Calvin in saying that the Son has the essence from himself, since the essence was communicated to the Son, even though the essence is not generated. Now, let me pick back up on Moeller. That's a sidebar. So Lombard is a precursor in certain ways of Calvin, in other ways he is not. But let me pick back up on Moeller and probe this just a little bit more. He says, quote, "To put the point another way, there is no essential difference between the Father and the Son, the only difference being the relation of opposition, namely the begottenness of the Son. The Son, therefore, has all of the attributes of the divine essence, including aseity." Now, what Moeller is doing in that quotation is distilling the Reformed reception of Calvin in the early development of the scholastic tradition. Aseity is common to the Father, common to the Son, common to the Holy Spirit. Paternity, unique to the Father. Filiation, unique to the Son. Spiration, unique to the Spirit. So the essence of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is ingenerate and uncommunicated. That's Calvin's point. The essence of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is both ingenerate and uncommunicated, even though the Father generates the person of the Son and the persons of the Father and Son spirate the person of the Spirit. According to Moeller, the only difference between the Father and the Son rests in a relation of opposition. It does not rest in a communication of essence or a reception of essence. And so Moeller says the early Orthodox Reformed maintained, in accord with Tralcadius and with considerable nuance, this characteristic feature of Calvin's Trinitarianism, the identification of the second person of the Trinity considered as to essence is autotheos, or having the attribute of asietas. Their doctrinal formulations of the point, moreover, evidence the early Orthodox effort to reappropriate the teaching of the Fathers in some depth as a basis for orthodoxy, despite their insistence that the patristic materials were not normative in any final sense. So what is Muller saying? He's saying this, that the early Reformed Orthodox received Calvin's doctrine of an irreducible triune essence, received Calvin's doctrine of autothean personhood, affirmed that the Son, considered as to essence, is autotheos, considered in person is from the Father, and likewise of the Spirit. And they did this self-consciously in polemical debate with the Arminians who denied it. And so what we have to recognize from this is at least this point. The Reformation, particularly in the teaching of John Calvin, brought forth greater precision and clarity on the doctrine of the Trinity, set forth a rigorous, ruled Trinitarian grammar, ascribed what is common to the essence, what is proper to the persons, and in so doing laid an axe to the root of the subordinationism inherent in Arminianism that would ascribe aseity only to the person of the Father and not to the person of the Son or the person of the Holy Spirit. And Muller is saying this, that what Calvin did amounts to a more rigorous and robust expression of Western Trinitarianism over against Eastern, is an expansion upon and refinement of Lombardian and Fourth Lateran Council Trinitarianism. And as we reflect on Calvin in relation to Thomas, is a veritable axe to the root of Thomas's pre-processional unity of essence in the Father alone. And by extension, lays an axe to the root of his Exodus Reditus scheme that follows from it. Autotheos, in other words, is the beginning of a totalizing Trinitarian critique of Thomas's Trinitarian sacerdotalism, Thomas's Trinitarian Exodus Reditus model that locates the unity of the essence initially in the Father alone, and then, and only then, is that essence tripersonalized in the processions. Calvin is a totalizing no to such a reductionist move in Trinitarianism, and he therefore lays open this before us. He gives us a constructive path forward to affirm absolute ontological co-equality and correlativity among the Trinitarian persons in their processions. There's the constructive side. And a way for us polemically to close the path toward the abstraction, the hierarchy, and the sacerdotalism inherent in the Thomistic presentation. And for that, we owe Calvin a great debt of gratitude.